Welcome to Shul.com. At the end of Parashat Toldot, there's a very long Rashi that explains the breakdown of the years that Yaakov Avinu is missing when you see the calculation in the Torah. So let's look at some of the numbers. I broke down the chart, and then we'll look at Masechet Megillah, page 16b, to understand what was really going on. So first, Yaakov Avinu was born, and that's right here at 0, and his father is 6 years old. Ishmael is 14 years older at age 74. At age 63, he gets to Berachot, and he leaves Be'er Sheva because he's running away from Esav. And at that point, Esav goes to marry one of the daughters of Ishmael after marrying the daughters of Nechit. That upset his father. But it tells us in the Parashat that the brother of Achot Nevayot ended up going to marry her off, because he originally got engaged to the daughter of Ishmael, but during the time from engagement to getting married, Ishmael died, and that was at age 137. Yitzhak at that point is 123 years old. So he is in the house of Eved for 14 years, and at age 77, he arrives at the well in Aram Naharaim to Lavan. He works 7 years for Rachel, 7 years for Leah, and 6 years for the Tzon. He originally marries Leah, and a week later he marries Rachel, and for 14 years Rachel is barren. After the 14 years, at age 91, she gives birth to Yosef, and that's right here on this column. Now if you take a look, he's now 97 years old when he leaves the house of Laban, and he has a 2-year travel time until he comes back. He goes to Sukkot, and he does a couple of things before going back home to Yitzhak. Now, after 17 years, from 91 till 108, because Yosef is sold at age 17 down to Egypt, Yaakov is 108 years old. And there's 22 years that Yosef is missing, and when he arrives in Mitzrayim, Yaakov Avinu is 130 years old. And if we look at the chart of Yosef, Yosef is sold down to Egypt at age 17. He's 1 year in the house of Potiphar, 10 years in jail, plus another 2 years in jail for saying 2 words to the Sara Mashkim. And at age 30, he becomes the king. There is 7 years of plenty and 2 years of famine, that's 39, and that is when Yaakov Avinu arrives. Now, the 14 years that are missing that concern the Gemara and Rashi is that if you take a look, he leaves at age 63, and there are 53 years from 63. If you take 53 and 63, it's 116. But where do you get the 53 from? That Yosef is 39 years old when Yaakov arrives, and he is 14 from the house of Lavan. So that's 53 and 63, it's 116. There's a missing of 14 years, and that fills in the 14 years that he is in the house of Eved. If you look in the Gemara in Megillah 16b, Amar Rabba, Amar Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta, Gadol Talmud Torah yoter mikubud avaim. It's more valuable to learn Torah than even giving honor to a person's parents. Shekol otan shanim shaya Yaakov Avinu bebet Eved lo ne'enash. That all the 14 years that he was in the house of Eved, he did not get punished for those years, because he ends up leaving his father's house for a total of 20 plus 14, 34 years, plus 2, 36 years. So let's take a look here. He says, De Amar Mor, Lama nimnu shenotav shel Ishmael. Why does the Torah even mention the years and the times of Ishmael? Now Ishmael does die a tzaddik at the end of his life. It says Vayigva vayamot, and Vayigva is reference for tzaddikim. Kedei leyaches behen shenotav shel Yaakov. In order to calculate the years of Yaakov, dichtiv ve'ele shnei chaye Ishmael me'at shana u'shloshim shana ve'esheva shanim. Kama kashish Ishmael mitzchak. Besar Shenin. So how many years difference between Ishmael and Yitzhak is 14. Dichtiv Bavram ben Shmonim Shana Veshesh Shanim Beledet Hagar et Ishmael leAvram. Uchtiv Abraham ben Me'at Shana Bivaled lo et Yitzhak beno. Uchtiv Yitzhak ben Shishim Shana Beled otam. Bar Kama Hava Ishmael ke deit Yelid Yaakov. How old was Ishmael when Yaakov was born? Bar Shivim Ba'arba'a, as we have there on the top. Kama Paishan Mishene Shitin Utlat. And he was 63 years when Ishmael dies. Betanya, Haya Yaakov Avinu Besha'a Shenitbarech Me'avi Ben Shishim Beshalosh Shana. When he gets to Beracha, he's 63. Bo, Baperek met Ishmael, and that's when Ishmael died. Tichtiv, Vayar Esav ki Berach, Vegomer, Vayelech Esav el Ishmael, Vayikach et Mahalat bat Ishmael achot Nebayot. So he goes to marry Mahalat bat Ishmael, and the brother of Nebayot ends up marrying her, not Ishmael. That's why the pasuk even mentions him, because I guess he walked her down the aisle or consummated that marriage. Mimashma, Shneemar, bat Ishmael, en yodashi achot Nebayot. If you say it's the daughter of Ishmael, don't I already know the brother of Nebayot? Melamed shekidesha Ishmael, the Ishmael was there for the kiddushin. Vamet vehisi'an Nebayot, and nisuin Nebayot achia, got married later with achot Nebayot. Shitin utlat ad besar. Now, if you calculate 63 years and 14 years, ad demit yelid Yosef, ha-shiv'in v'shiv'ah, you have 77 years. Uchtiv Yosef ben 30 shana ve'omdo lifnei Paro. And he's 30 years when he stands in front of Paro and becomes the king. Ha-me'a ushva, that's 107. Shav d'shiv'ah v'tarteh d'chafna, ha-me'a v'shitzar. And if you end up adding the 7 years of plenty and the 2 years of the famine, you end up having me'ah v'shitzar, which is 116 years. But Uchti vayomer Paro el Yaakov, Paro asks Yaakov, Kama yemeh sheneh chayecha, how old are you? Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, he answers him, Yemeh sheneh migureh shloshim u'ma'at shana, he says 130. Me'ah v'shitzar havyan. But that's different than the 116 of this calculation. Ela shma mina arba esrei shenin dehava bevet evet. So therefore, based on this calculation, 14 years missing, that he's not punished for. So we know for sure, because he was not punished for those 14 years, he must have been learning Torah. Otherwise, it could have been that Yosef would have been away for additional 14 years. La chashiv lehu. Detanya, Haya Yaakov bebet Eved mutman arba esrei shana. He was hiding in the house of Eved. It's interesting that the Gemara here doesn't say Shem at all. This says he was in the house of Eved. Eved met. Eved dies. So 2 years after 77, Eved ends up passing away. When he passes away, he goes to see Lavan in Aram Naharaim. Nimsa kishe'amad ala be'er ben 77 shana, and he was 77 years old when he gets to the well in Aram Naharaim. Umnalan de la i'anash. Then from where do we know that he wasn't punished for the 14 years that he was in the house of Eved? Nimsa Yosef sheperash me'aviv 22 shana. That we know Yosef was away for 22 years. Keshem sheperash Yaakov avinu me'aviv, just like the years that Yaakov was away from his father, not the years that he was learning Torah. Because had it been those years that he was doing something like working for Lavan, he too might have seen it in Yosef. The Yaakov Latin v'shita havyan ela arbesar dehava bevet Eved la chashev lehu. And so it wasn't counted the 14 years. Sof, the end of it, the Bet Lavan estin shenim havyan, he was 20 years in Lavan's house. If you look at Achel Leah 7:7, Son 6, ela mishum de ishtahi beorcha tarten shenin. The Tanya. Okay, so when he came back, on his way back from Aram Naharaim, he was 97 years old. He travels back, and on his journey back, he took him 2 years till he got home to his house. Why 2 years back till he got to Be'er Sheva? The Tanya Yatzah me'Aram Naharaim u'ba lo Sukkot. He goes to a place called Sukkot. V'asa sham shmona asar chodesh. He was there for 8 months. Shne'emar v'Yaakov nasa Sukkot v'yiven lo bait u'lmikneo asa Sukkot u'bebet el asa shisha chodashim. Another 6 months there. V'hikriv zevachim. So if you have 8 months and the 6 months, you're already going into the 2-year time frame. And from here, you can get a good calculation as to how they knew that he was learning Torah. Now, there wasn't any other place to learn Torah other than the house of Yitzhak or Abraham, or in Eved. There wasn't really that many yeshivot around. And so from here, we can conclude that he was missing 14 years studying Torah. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.